You guys know what time of the month it is. Not that time of the month. It is time for my May reading wrap up. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Liz, and in today's video, like I said before, we are going to be chatting about my May reading wrap up. This month, I feel like overall was a very successful month. I'm really happy with the types of books I was able to complete, how many I was able to complete, and also my ratings overall. I feel like I had overall like really good ratings for this whole month. So my stats for this month, I was able to complete 12 books, 9 of which were read physically, 3 of which were done as audiobooks. 2 of the 12 books were from my spring TBR. I am currently reading another book that's on my spring TBR at the moment, but I already know I'm not going to finish my spring TBR because it is about to be June. I'm just in the mood for summer reads. I am just going to take the L on that one, and I'm perfectly content with that and fine with that. I was able to start one series, which you guys know I'm trying to cut back on how many series I start. Sometimes it's not always on purpose. Sometimes it's like a book that I didn't realize was going to be a series, or it's like interconnected. So I only started one, and that was because it was a buddy read that I was doing with my friend Sophia. I was able to complete one series, this is one of the series that I've had on my TBR, like my physical TBR, for way too long. So it feels really good to get that one checked off. And then I also continued 2 series, which also feels really good. As long as I can keep continuing the series that I'm in the middle of, even if like the books aren't all out yet or published, that's still a win. Enough with the stats. Let's go ahead and chat about the books that I was able to read this May. Also, quick side note, it is thunderstorming right now. That is why I'm using the microphone, and that is why it looks extremely dark in here. It is actually 10:30 in the morning and it looks like it's nighttime. So the first 3 books that I was able to complete this month, these are all books that I read in a completing series vlog. So if you're wanting more in-depth thoughts, feelings, reactions about these books, feel free to go watch that video, that vlog where I was able to complete and continue a few series. That's my goal for each month, or like every other month at least. I want to do a vlog, or I just want to keep reading series that I'm in the middle of, just because I'm in the middle of so many. And the first one that I was able to complete in that vlog is The Whispering Night by Susan Dennard. This is book 3 in her Luminaries trilogy, which I read book 2 last month and book 1 I read years ago. So it feels really, really good to finally finish the series. It is a YA fantasy series where it is set in modern day, but it's set in this community that lives out in the woods, where every night these mists rise up, these monsters are hatched from the mists, and these townspeople have to go out and hunt all these monsters. And our main character in this series, her and her family, are kind of outcasts, and so she has to go through these hunter trials in order to become a hunter, so that way she can help her family kind of be reintegrated into society. I really enjoyed the series. Overall, I feel like it's a solid YA fantasy series. So if you're wanting something that's on the moodier side, I definitely recommend. I think this would be a great series to read in the fall time, especially with all the monsters that are described. All 3 books take place over the course of like 2 months. So it's all fast paced. It's back to back to back. So I would definitely read them and binge them together because it does take place all within that time frame. Our main character is a very fun character to follow along with because she's very quirky, she's very funny, and she's also very loyal as well. The next book that I read in that vlog is Unbound by Peyton Corrine. This is book 3 in her Undone series. I believe it's just gonna be 4 books. I do have a copy of book 4, so I'm very excited to read that hopefully this summer. These are interconnected standalones. It's all like a college hockey romance series. So if you enjoy the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy, if you've been watching her show, then you would definitely enjoy these books because you just get more of that college hockey feel. What I really like about her books is they definitely pack an emotional punch. A lot of our characters are dealing with very traumatic topics or issues that they've had lingering since childhood. Each character is kind of going through something different, and also they each are going to therapy. So I feel like it's just a very healthy take on a romance book. You don't typically see your romance characters going to therapy in the book, even though you kind of wish that they would. In this one, we are following Bennett, who is the neurodivergent hockey goalie for the hockey team, and Paloma, who is kind of known as the bad girl, or kind of like the it girl as well, and she kind of gets around, if you know what I'm saying. This one does a then and now timeline where you're going back and forth between when they were freshmen and they first met and kind of developed this friendship and romance, and then you're flashing forward to, I believe it was their senior year, kind of how far that they have come since things happened freshman year. I really enjoyed it. I loved getting to see their POVs because these are 2 side characters that I saw in books 1 and 2 that I knew I wanted their story, and I'm also very excited for book 4 because I feel like that one might end up being my favorite in the series. The third and final book that I was able to complete in that vlog is Rights of the Starling by Devney Perry. This is book 2 that comes after Shield of Sparrows, which I read last year, gave 5 stars. I love Shield of Sparrows so much. I was a little nervous going into this one just because I love Shield of Sparrows so much, and based on how that one ended, I knew the beginning of this one was going to be a little bit harder to get into, or maybe a little bit more challenging for me to enjoy, but I was pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed this one. You do get introduced to a whole new POV in this one, which I thoroughly enjoyed. At first, you're kind of like, why do I care about this character? What does this have to do with the plot? But you quickly realize who they are and what their purpose is, and once you do, it just all comes together so seamlessly. This is a world where there are these monsters that kind of roam, so the land has gotten very dangerous, and there's also this kind of like disease or plague that is being spread through these monsters and kind of turning them all feral. And our main character, she is the not favored child. When a neighboring kingdom comes to marry her sister, they end up choosing her instead, so she has to travel to a whole new country. She is unprepared. She was never trained for this because she was raised to not be the person who gets married off. I just really loved her grit and determination through book 1, and I was really excited to see it continue in book 2. I was so invested with these characters and their story and what was going to happen in this fantasy world. Based on the ending, I know that book 3, which I think is the final book in this trilogy, I think it's going to be a trilogy, is going to wreck me. The next book that I actually did as an audiobook, and this is a book we were reading for a fantasy book club that I am in, is Agnes Aubert's Mystical Cat Shelter by Heather Fawcett. This is the author of the Emily Wilde series. I haven't read that series myself, but I've heard so many people say that she's kind of like the queen of cozy fantasy. I'm not a huge cozy fantasy reader just because I like to have high stakes. I like the adrenaline pumping action scenes that you get in your typical fantasies. So I don't typically grab for cozy, but since this was our fantasy book club book, obviously I was going to read it. I don't know if I would have liked it more if I had read it physically. I didn't love this one. This is a story following basically what our title is, Agnes Aubert, who has her own cat shelter. It is also set in the 1920s in Montreal, which I did not realize until I finished this book. It in no way sounds like it is in the 1920s. Our main character at the beginning, her shop was destroyed by 2 magicians who were at war out in the streets, and so she at the beginning is just trying to find a landlord who will take her and her cats in, and she is struggling to do that. And then she comes upon, I think his name's Havelock. She quickly realizes he himself is a magician and magic is outlawed. They kind of build this alliance in order for her to stay and have a space for her cats, but also for him to have a space where he can sell his magical artifacts and things down in the basement. There were parts towards the end that I actually really enjoyed. Our main character in this one, she is dealing with the grief of losing her husband at the beginning of the book. It had some really great emotional scenes. You don't get a ton of romance in this one. You get some crumbs. I kind of wish we got more between her and Havelock, but is what it is. I wasn't like overly invested in this story and these characters, but there were scenes that I enjoyed and there were a lot of scenes that I didn't really care about. I felt very indifferent about this one. And the next book that I read this month, this is one that I did for a buddy read with my friend Sophia, and that is Vow and Vengeance by Jacqueline Rodriguez. I will definitely be continuing this series because I was unprepared for how much I was going to like this book. This is set in a world where there are humans and there's also fae immortals as well. The way that they live in harmony is every year these different subspecies of the fae come to the human lands and they take 100 human sacrifices. The humans don't know what happens to the people who are chosen. In this story, our main character, she is a human and her whole family has been chosen. So she is the last remaining person in her family that's still in the mortal lands. And so in the beginning, she's kind of just wanting revenge and she wants to be chosen so she can cross over and find her family. And when she does, she quickly realizes that everything she thought she knew about the fae was completely wrong. As she gets over there, she realizes that they actually turn you into fae and you get sent to different schools where you can learn about magic. And the magic system in this world is all through tarot cards, which I found very, very interesting. Really excited for book 2 to see more of that because I feel like we didn't get as much as I was hoping for in book 1, but I know it was all more like introductory stuff. We were really just like learning about this world, learning about the politics between all the different fae subspecies. The romance, the banter was so good. And our main character, she's kind of just thrown into all these politics and she has no idea how she got to where she is. And she just kind of has to make the most of it. I'm definitely going to continue this series because I really enjoyed our main character. I really enjoyed the magic and the world building in this book. And I'm really excited to see more of her with our love interest in book 2. And And the next book that I was able to complete is Tilt by Emma Pate. Our main character, she is 9 months pregnant, and so she is ready to pop. And she is shopping at an IKEA for a crib. While she is there, this huge earthquake hits, and she then has to travel through all of this debris and wreckage in order to get to her husband. It definitely has like that survival element. All the horrific things that she witnesses, all the bodies and, the fires, the destruction that has been caused by this earthquake was so emotional. It was truly, it felt very real. But also, as you're reading in between chapters, you're getting kind of her life story. You're learning more about her. She's talking to her unborn child and trying to explain where she came from and what kind of world she is being born into. It was very well done. I really enjoyed it up until the end. The ending honestly really disappointed me. It didn't go where I thought it was going to go, and by the end it kind of felt like pointless. Like, what was the point of me reading? I can't say much more because I don't want to spoil, but I was just a little let down. I liked 80% of this book, and then the last 20 lost me. The next book that I read, this is actually a graphic novel called Youth Group by Bowen McCurdy and Jordan Morris. I am trying to get more into graphic novels. I feel like I'm slowly working my way through them. They're so easy to fly through. If you're ever in a reading slump, pick up a graphic novel. Out of all the graphic novels that I've read so far, this is definitely up there for me. This is following our main character who, her parents are recently divorced, and her mother is trying to help her meet new people. So they end up going to a brand new church. Her mom is kind of all in, and her daughter, she's a teenager, like the stereotypical teenager who's just angsty and sulking in the corner and doesn't want to be around anybody. And so she is then thrown into this youth group where she then meets our youth group leader. By accident, she gets introduced to what this youth group leader does on the side when she is not at church, and that is she hunts demons. Through this friendship, she kind of learns that she has her own inner power that is very useful. And this story is honestly just one of finding yourself, figuring out what kind of beliefs you want to have. She's very indifferent towards religion at the beginning, and you kind of follow along on her religious journey. And also, what I liked about this book is it felt very realistic because a lot of teenagers, a lot of people in general, do struggle with what they believe in. Also shows how you can still be friends with someone even if they're a different religion than you. And it kind of puts things into perspective, how we're all just trying our best. At the end of the day, you can believe in what you want to believe in, and we can all still live in harmony, make the most of this life that we've been given. The next book that I actually listened to as an audiobook when I was on my way to my reading retreat recently is 5 by Lona Bannister. The story is set where you have this omniscient narrator who tells you right off the bat that someone is gonna die. We're following 5 different strangers who are all at this train station, and they're all waiting for the train to arrive. As the story unfolds, you are getting glimpses into each of these characters' lives, kind of like what makes them who they are morally. You're getting just enough information to feel like you have an understanding of them as a person. In between each of their chapters, you're getting flashbacks back to the train station as the train is slowly approaching and what's happening in the train station. And you're constantly left guessing and wondering who it is that's going to die. What I really liked about it is it does kind of force the reader to become the judge, jury, and the executioner all at once, because someone's going to die and you can kind of start predicting, and you think, oh, well, it might be best if this character died, so that way this person survives, or this person doesn't want to be here, so maybe they should die, and then everyone else should survive. It kind of puts you in this weird spot where you feel almost guilty because you do feel like you are casting judgment on these characters when it's really not your call and not your choice. You don't get to choose who dies. Even by the end, you truly don't know who it's going to be until the very, very end. I do wish we got a little bit more time with each of our characters because I was left wanting more. And some of these characters I feel like could have their own story, their own book, and I would read it. All of these characters felt so fleshed out, but at the same time, I still wanted more. The audiobook was so immersive. It had a full cast, so I highly recommend that. And then the next book that I read on my reading retreat, this is one that we were all buddy reading while we were on our trip, is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is a modern day classic. I'm pretty sure it's a translation. This is kind of like a dystopian, post-apocalyptic world. We have 40 women who are all trapped in this underground bunker. Our main character, she is the youngest of all the women. She came into this cage when she was an infant, so she has no memories prior to being in these cages. There are these silent, mute guards who patrol outside the cage who don't interact with them at all. They have no way of knowing how long they've been here. The only way they're able to tell is just watching our main character grow up and guessing what her age would be. I don't want to say too much about the plot of this book. You definitely have to go in knowing this is going to feel like a fever dream and you're going to be uncomfortable. By the end of this book, I was left staring at a wall trying to decompress what I had read. And I just truly could not come to a conclusion. That is one of the things about this book that kind of frustrated me. It felt like we had an unreliable narrator because our main character is a daydreamer, but also at the same time, nothing is ever really given a conclusion. Nothing is ever really answered. You kind of have to draw your own conclusions. It's one of those books that will linger in the back of your brain for a while. And I do think that this would be a really great book club book because there is a lot to unpack, even though not a lot of it is like factual. It's more so just your own predictions of what happened. See, that's the thing. I'm still left kind of clueless when it comes to this book. I do recommend it. I think everyone should try it out. Some people really love it. Some people hate it. And I kind of fell somewhere in the middle. I felt a mixture of both. I'm glad I read it. So at least I know what it's about. And then the next book that I started immediately after that one, because like I said, I was left staring at the wall, was a candy read that I had brought along with me. And that is Love Me, Stalk Me by Laura Bishop. This is like a stalker romance, which I don't typically read a lot of dark romance, but I was in the mood for something that was super mindless, super low stakes, something that was going to make me laugh and kind of get me out of my head after reading and finishing I Who Have Never Known Men. This is following our main character who she's in a very unsatisfying relationship, one where it's like verbally abusive, borderline physically abusive. She is just in this pattern that she can't shake. So she ends up downloading this AI boyfriend app so that way she can get the emotional need that she needs from her relationship. At the same time, we have our male main character who he is actually the brand new head of security at her department store that she manages. He hacks into her phone and he is the AI boyfriend. She thinks she's texting this app, but she's actually texting him. It was so much fun, honestly, really creepy and weird, but you know, our main character was thriving. It's only weird if you make it weird. Okay. Would I ever read it again? No. Did I have fun with it though? Yes, I did. And then another audiobook that I listened to on my drive home from my reading retreat is The Anniversary by Alex Finley. This is a story that takes place over the course of a decade, I believe. In this town, there is the serial killer that is at large. They are called the Mayday Killer. And every May 1st, they kidnap a young girl or woman and they are never seen again. Our story is following two different characters. It's dual POV. We have our female main character in the beginning of the story. She is one of the victims of the Mayday Killer. However, he releases her. He lets her go and he calls her one of the lucky ones. And she doesn't know why she was let go. She's kind of left in this weird limbo of, do I tell anyone? If I do, he knows where I live. And she feels like she kind of has to keep it a secret. And then our male main character, he is a guy who was in her study hall who she kind of had a crush on. He kind of has a crush on her. And he is going through his own journey, his own issues. He gets in some trouble the night that she gets kidnapped. Months after that, his mom gets murdered. So he is going through his whole point of view of things, trying to figure out who killed his mom, why they killed his mom. And at the same time, you're following along with her at every May 1st and how she is dealing with this trauma and how it's festered and how she just feels scared and on edge all the time. The way the storytelling goes is you are only following them every May 1st. So you go through, I think, 9 or 10 May 1sts. And so that's why it takes place over the course of like a decade. I was definitely invested in the story. I wanted to know who the killer was. I wanted to unpack what was happening because there was clearly something like a bigger conspiracy happening at the same time. But I was left feeling so confused. Maybe I wouldn't have been if I had read it physically, but I was left so confused. It felt like there was too much happening. There were too many loose ends. I felt mixed feelings on this one. I was honestly frustrated. And at the end, I didn't feel satisfied. It didn't feel like it flowed seamlessly. And the final book that I was able to complete this month is The Caretaker by Marcus Kluwer. This is his newest horror novel. I really wanted to read this when I was on my reading retreat, but I didn't have time for it. But I'm also, after finishing it, kind of glad that I didn't read it in the cabin in the woods because the story is following a character who is taking care of a property and it's up in this mountain in the woods, very isolated. It's very creepy and eerie. And I'm kind of glad that I didn't read it on my reading retreat because I probably wouldn't have slept if I had. She's taking care of this property. It pays really, really well. However, she has to follow this very strict set of rules around the property. It was very creepy. There were moments where I felt spooked and I had to put the book down and walk away because I was very creeped out. I could not read this at night. I did kind of enjoy it, but at the same time, it did feel like when you watch a scary movie and you're just yelling at your main character the whole time and saying like, don't go in the basement. Why are you being stupid? Why are you making this decision? Like use some sort of rational thought and you'll be fine. Our main character had no survival instincts. It felt like she had extreme OCD because you're put in her head where she has these repetitive thoughts over over and over and over. I know that this author wrote We Used to Live Here, which I'm planning on reading this summer. Very excited for it. I feel like if you read this one and didn't like it, you should probably still read We Used to Live Here because I've heard good ratings on that one. I'm going to put you guys here. I don't know if you'll be able to hear me very well, but I got to pick up my stack of books. And those were the 12 books that I was able to complete this month. I feel like I was able to kind of push myself outside my comfort zone. I read a very wide range of genres, which is always really nice. And I'm really excited for June. I'm currently just in the mood for summer reads. So I think I'm going to pause my spring TBR and start my summer TBR because that's what I'm in the mood for. And I really don't want to go into a slump at the beginning of the summer. Thank you guys for following along with me. I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully you got some good recommendations out of this. And I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.